everyone has a story, and mine's just a little bit different than I think my story shaped my future from when I was 13 years old. I was diagnosed with 2 terminal cancers. They gave me 3 months to live the first time. They gave me 14 days to live the second time.
Sean Swarner is a 2-time cancer survivor who went on to become the first cancer survivor to summit Mount Everest with only 1 lung. A motivational speaker, author, and founder of the Cancer Climber Association.
At that time, I remember laying in the hospital bed looking at my mom and my dad, and the chances of me surviving both those cancers was 0.000001%. Fast forward 10 years later, I became the first cancer survivor to climb Mount Everest, and I've gone on to go do things around the world no human in history's ever done before.
What's up, everybody? This is Ryan Van Ornum with Scaling Up Success Podcast. I am here today with a good friend of mine, Sean Swarner, and he has an amazing story, and I can't wait to dive into it. Sean, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, man. It's been interesting. I had a super long overnight trip yesterday. I'm here for 2 days in Boulder, Colorado, giving a presentation, and then I'm taking a red eye the next day back to Puerto Rico.
Oh my goodness, man! You don't sleep in the same time zone in one whole week. It's incredible, dude. I love what you're doing with everything that you've built, but it all starts from where you came from. So, if possible, let people know a little bit about let the audience know a little bit about how what you've been building. How did it come from? How did it come to fruition?
Absolutely. The whole thing that everyone has a story, right? Everyone has a story. We all have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, because I think you can learn something from everyone's story. And mine's just a little bit different than most. I think my story shaped my future from when I was 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've mentioned it to you before, but just quickly, I was diagnosed in my teens with 2 terminal cancers. They gave me 3 months to live the first time. They gave me 14 days to live the second time.
My goodness.
A medically induced coma for a year of my life when I was 16, 17 years old. I was read my last rites. The hospital at the time wanted me to write out a living will, and I have a younger brother who's 3 years younger than myself. And at that time, I remember laying in the hospital bed looking at my mom and my dad, what's a hospital want? Isn't my brother going to get my hand-me-downs anyhow? I didn't really understand what the hospital wanted. But I lost the function of my right lung because of the treatments. And the chances of me surviving both those cancers was pretty much 0.00000001%.
Oh my gosh.
So that's where my story begins. And fast forward 10 years later, I became the first cancer survivor to climb Mount Everest, and I've gone on to go do things around the world that no human in history's ever done before.
That is unbelievable. Every time I hear it, gives me goosebumps every time I hear your story, bro. And it's just fascinating. Like your willpower, your will to live, your mantra now going forward, man. I love everything that you're doing, and being able to get your message out to the masses is just incredible, because not it really goes to nothing's guaranteed, and don't take for granted what you have available to you, and just the power of the human body itself. You are the prime example of this. You were just telling me a couple months ago, just the incredible, you did 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents. What is that?
It was, I guess it's continuously pushing the envelope. I want to continue proving to myself that I'm still alive. I'm capable of doing these amazing things, but I'm no different than anyone else. I just think I may have a different perspective on my own abilities than other people. So
right.
After Everest, going back to your question, the 777, after Everest, climbed the highest mountain on every continent, skied to the North Pole, South Pole. Didn't find Santa Claus. So if anybody's watching, sorry, he must have had his cloaking device on. Then completed the World Championship Ironman triathlon in Hawaii. Done a number of different things since then, and I guess that'd be about an 8-year time span. And then recently, as you mentioned, I decided to run 7 marathons in 7 days on all seven continents. And
I don't even know how you got to the place in 7 days and ran, let alone running 7 marathons. But like that's just unbelievable, man. I mean, so now you've built this into many different types of businesses that you've kind of scaled up from. It's pretty amazing to see because I mean, people love hearing who you are, what you're about. Like, how did what are some of the challenges that you faced with building out this speaking type of business that you're doing now?
I would say the biggest challenge that I've faced, great question, because you're helping me with it. The biggest challenge that I have faced is I have done everything on my own. And I have helped corporations around the world empower their employees. But like my parents, and many parents out there, we need to listen to our own advice.
Right.
I have never climbed to the summit of any significant peak by myself. And I got two book deals. I got an Amazon, Emmy award-winning feature film on Amazon. I've accomplished all these crazy things. I just gave a TED talk in Prague. I received an award with Archbishop Desmond Tutu when he was alive. I was just in
Oh
Cairo
my
for an award
goodness.
out there, and the thing is, I've done all that on my own, but I've hit that glass ceiling. And I haven't really utilized what I've done to monetize it.
Hmm.
I've always looked at it from the perspective of I'm having a great time. I was once, as I mentioned, given 14 days to live. And I'm like, okay, every morning I wake up, today's the best day ever. How can we make it the best day ever? Well, we're going to go do this. We're going to go do that. Well, now it's time to monetize what I've done and actually start reaching out to corporations as opposed to organically having them come in
Right.
finding me. Like you can have the best story and the best website, the best anything in the world, the best Jivet, whatever it might be.
Right.
You can have the best product in the world, but if nobody knows about it, you're going to be broke. So I'm
Yeah.
not saying I'm broke, but you're helping me with that outreach. And we're
Yeah.
going to be reaching out to thousands and thousands of decision makers to help empower others. So now I'm at a position where I want to give back and help as much as I can so people can see a different perspective. So the biggest challenge is not having the right people in the right places, and you're helping me fill those places.
So when you're doing this, because now it's like understanding the scaling process, like one of the things, and I know I've met some of the people that you've been in business with as well, is like you definitely understand culture and like how culture can affect how you grow. What are some things that you look for in people that you're when you're building out this phase of what you're doing?
Different perspectives. And I know you mentioned meeting some people on my team. I'm going to mention one by name. His name is Braxton. He's my manager. And he's one of the very few individuals who, and this is going to sound odd, but who has the backbone to tell me no, right? Because I come up with all these ideas. Hey, I want to do this. I want to do that. I take it back. My mom and dad have always said, Sean, that's a crazy idea. I don't think you should do it. And I'm always like, Mom, Dad, I'm still going to do it. My wife, hey, babe, Julissa, I'm going to go climb Everest again without supplemental oxygen. She's like, are you crazy? I support you, but I don't think you should do it. But anyhow, Braxton is the first person who has all my ideas flowing into him like a funnel. And he's like, no, no, this is a good one. We'll hang this one up. No, no. So that's probably key. Putting those people to make the culture of understanding, saying no is not bad. No can
Right.
be a good thing.
Right. How do you manage, like you said that you have a wife, like you have, your parents are around, you have family still. Like how do you manage that work-life balance as a business owner, like and what you do? Because you're constantly traveling, how do you manage that? I mean, it just sounds incredible what you do.
Interesting question. And let me rephrase that too by saying work will always be there. Family may not. You never know what's going to happen the next day. Granted, you need to allocate your time in a specific place, but understand that you create your time. You make time for what's important to you. So, for example, let's say you're sitting in your office and somebody comes in, you're working, you're diligently at work, sitting on the computer, super focused, and your son comes in and says, Dad, let's go throw the ball in the backyard. And you're like, man, I don't have time for that. Give me some time. Same scenario. He comes in. You're working diligently hard. You're so focused. He goes, Dad, I just stepped on a rusty nail. Your answer is not going to be the same.
Right, right.
So focusing on your personal core values helps you allocate where you want to spend most of your time. And also understanding that your summit, right? Whatever you're going for, whatever that goal is more often than not probably a false summit. So let's say you want the new Audi, whatever, right? Why do you want that? It's not because you just want the car because it's a cool thing to have. Go a little bit deeper and understand, oh, it's probably because I favor and I have a value of personal growth, or
Mhm.
it means I'm successful. So if you go back to that core value of success, now you're allocating your time in the right places because you're not going after the thing. You're not going after the new shiny, sparkly syndrome thing. You're actually doing it for your family or for something you truly value. So you don't have to allocate your time. You're doing it for those things that you value most.
I think that's a phenomenal understanding of where that comes from, and thank you for sharing that. One of the things that I like every time I ask different questions to you, it just like you come from such a different mindset. It's incredible because like it's like just creating these opportunities out of nowhere where most people may not have even thought of it, but you're like, why not? So like what are some unexpected opportunities that you've had that have came from, this decision to travel down what you're doing now?
Interesting question. The first thing is knowing like, I constantly push myself out of my comfort zone. Right. I'm not a dancer. I have never been a dancer. I'm a white guy with two left feet. Right? My wife, born and raised in Puerto Rico, she has the Latin genes down in Puerto Rico. They don't induce labor. They play salsa music and dun dun, the baby comes dancing out. So they don't have to practice. They just know how to do it. So when I married her, she constantly pushes me out of my comfort zone. We have a towel in our kitchen that says the kitchen's not for cooking, it's for dancing.
I love it.
So she pushes me out of my comfort zone. I surround myself with other people where from the beginning, from the cancers, I have learned how to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations because I'm not going to embarrass myself, because just through definition, to be embarrassed, I have to be the one who's embarrassed. If other people are making fun of me, great, then that's them. They're jealous that I'm not out here making a fool of myself.
Right.
But putting myself in those situations, another big thing was I've climbed Kilimanjaro now 26 times. I take a group up every year
Jeez.
and it's an amazing trip. It's a life-changing journey, right? And you learn to conquer the mountain within. I'll just put it that way. I call it an inspedition. It's an inward journey through an outward adventure. And I've used the same guides, the same porters, the same everything, the locals, right? And probably about 8 years ago, they adopted me into the local tribe called the Chaga tribe, which that is really cool.
That
So
is super cool.
stepping out of my comfort zone and doing something most people would never do has brought me to a situation where literally looking at different cultures have brought me into a situation where I am now a member of an African tribe, literally a brother.
That
That's
is super
cool.
cool. Gosh, man. I just love hearing everything that you do, man. It kind of leads into like I mean, you're kind of like this unique anomaly of like how you operate and stuff like that. But like what challenges do you come across? I mean, is it funding? Is it like I mean, just it's incredible the stuff that you do. Like how do you make these things happen?
I would honestly say one of the biggest challenges is funding,
Hmm.
and corporate support. So if you look at, and I'm not a big conspiracy theorist at all, but if you look at, and after I said that, people are thinking, yes, just because you said that, now you are. I'm not. But if you look at what's on the news and you pay attention to the commercials, I've been in the media enough times to understand how this works. I have friends who are news reporters. They're the ones who are paying for what you see on TV.
Right, right.
So let's hypothetically say that when I was training for Everest, I approached a car company. That car company came back and said, no, we don't sponsor things like this. But 6 months later, they're now sponsoring a different group. Now it's me versus a giant conglomerate, right? And who
Mhm.
do you think is going to get those spots in the media? Me or their team?
Right.
Definitely not me. So over the years, it's been this constant uphill battle trying to get into the news, trying to get in the media and get my story known without having that corporate support, that corporate sponsor. And it would be great to have a giant company where they could tie in this almost impossible story to whatever, and I don't want to say any names, but it would fit so well to
Right.
help other people. So the biggest issue is just getting it out there.
Man. And that's what we're gonna be helping you with. I love hearing the story, and I just honestly want to help you as much as I possibly can because I love what you're doing, dude. How do you see the challenges with like the social environment or economic environment that's happening? Like do you see those as like challenges for getting your voice out there even more, or do you see it as opportunities?
Yes. Because if you look at, let's say what's happening in the Gaza Strip, let's say what's happening, in Ukraine, let's say what's happening even in our own country with sexism, racism, ageism, whatever ism you want to put, whatever word you want
Hmm.
to put in front of ism. I honestly think that it comes down to lack of education on the part of the person who's afraid of the other person,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So looking at, let's just use my friends in Africa. The color of their skin is it's like the darkness of my shirt, super,
right,
super dark. And a lot of people would say, oh, they could never do this, they can't do that. But they're afraid of that because they don't understand. So yeah, I think any ism comes from a lack of understanding. And because I've been adopted into the Chaga tribe, I've been adopted into, a family in Egypt. I've been adopted in Cairo. I've been adopted into a family in Nepal. So they call me Dawa Dorji when I go to Nepal, right?
oh my gosh,
It's because I've put myself in these situations where I love different cultures. I love the differences that people have. And when you can come together and actually discuss those differences without getting upset, but just looking at it, hey, how does life look like from the other person's point of view who just happened to be born in, Jerusalem,
right.
or somebody who just happened to be born in Moshi, Tanzania? How does their perspective look? So it goes back to us having two ears and one mouth for a reason. If we step back from our own fears and just try to look at it and listen to other people, we could be educated on those differences. Besides, if we lived in a world where everybody thought and looked the same, that would be a boring world to live in.
Oh, 100%. I love being able to meet different cultures. That's, like part of what we do with Synergist, our virtual assistant company. I love like assimilating to what they do. Like we understand their holidays, and like you work with us, and I'm like they're getting their Independence Day off, not our Independence Day. Like, like their festivals that they get to be a part of. I want them to live their life while still enriching ours. Like just understanding those type of things. And that's what the military taught me as well. Is like, like for me, when I went and served overseas at the start of the war in 2003, it was, to me, it was less about like actually protecting our freedoms, but protecting everyone's freedoms. Like understanding that as a role and a cause was much different than just like it's an American thing. That's the way that I looked at it. It's like just being able to help others. So I know this sounds kind of interest, or I guess you're gonna have to be a little bit more introspective because you're kind of unique. You're the only one on the planet to ever do what you've done. But if somebody has some sort of unique journey like you've been on, but doesn't know how to like engage it with the masses, how would you give them like advice to start that journey?
Start by understanding why you want to do it.
Okay.
Have a deeper purpose behind it. Because like I said, with most mountains, with most goals, oftentimes you're chasing the false summit. You get to the top and you look around and you're like, oh my God, I made it. And then your eyes kind of catch the distance, it follows the ridge line, and you realize, man, that spot's higher than where we are now.
Right.
It's because you were chasing the false summit, and you will never find happiness, and you'll never be satisfied chasing the false summit. The real summit is actually one of your values. So understand why you want to do it. So when you reach that summit, you're appreciating the journey. So if you look at it from a deeper perspective, never go after the thing. Go after the thing behind the thing. So when you're first starting, figure out what that is, why you want to do it, attach emotion to that. And then you're going to continue forward, because once you understand the true meaning behind your actions, you're never going to be stopped.
Man, that's phenomenal. And understanding, like, enjoy the journey, like every day. Gosh, that stuff is like just priceless, because if you're just focused on an end result, you're going to always, either be yearning for more, or you're going to not appreciate the opportunities that you have on those daily basis when the struggle happens during those times anyway. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate you sharing that with us. If you can, I don't know if you have NDAs on some of the stuff that you're doing or anything like that, but like, what's next in your journey, man?
Yeah. What's next? It's funny you ask. I'm contemplating Everest again without oxygen.
Oh
Um,
my
I'm
gosh.
putting, yeah, with my one lung, I'm putting together some online projects, like
Hmm.
projects to help people get that deeper understanding, and it takes people through this whole class of things. It's actually pretty cool. But I was thinking about what we were talking about earlier about enjoying the journey, and kind of my mind just works a million miles a second. Like,
Right.
tell that to a guy who was circling Chicago O'Hare Airport and can't land because of bad weather. He just wants
Sure.
to.
Right. Right. No, there's always, different perspectives on these things, and how you look at things. So I definitely appreciate that. If you could summarize your journey in like one sentence, how would you do that?
Oof, in one sentence. Can I take a script of what we've just mentioned, plug it into Chat GPT, and get back to
I love that. I
you?
love that. Man, and I think to a certain extent it's just enjoy the journey is really kind of how you live your, almost like your mantra, almost, because like every day I just see what you're doing and I'm like, geez, man, it's like, but also the thing that I kind of look at is like, you can't compare your insides to other people's outsides. Because like what you do, I'm envious of what you do, but I also love my life. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Different, again, it goes back to different perspectives. And I'm thinking, make the most of every day, celebrate the small wins, keep moving forward with passion, but also take time for yourself. If you need a timeout, take a timeout.
Absolutely. Man, I could talk to you all day long, and like, it is just, you're just a phenomenal person to have in my world. I appreciate you, my friend. If people are interested in knowing more about your story or being a part of a corporate event, some of your speaking engagements, how can they get a hold of you?
Easiest question you've asked. Sean, my first and last name.com, SeanSwarner.com.
Perfect. Perfect. Sean, it is an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for being a part of things today. And best of luck in all of your next future endeavors. You are an amazing person, and I'm just appreciative to have you in my life, my friend.
I appreciate that as well. Appreciate you and what you do, not just for myself, but for so many others too. So thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, take care, sir. Have a wonderful day.